So, welcome back, everybody. And after the success of April's talks, Entangled Discussions is back, and this time we're here to gain insight into the people and organisations that are providing such crucial support and engagement networks to those in the quantum arena. And it is great today to start with one of the hardest working and most conspicuous people in the UK quantum scene. So here to discuss how collaboration, visibility and awareness can impact us all. It's a real pleasure to introduce Najwa Sidki of the Knowledge Transfer Network.
Hi, thank you very much, John, for having me and for the nice invitation.
It's an absolute pleasure. I'm really looking forward to this one today. So just for anyone who may not know you, can you just start by introducing yourself, your role and KTN as an organisation?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Najwa Sidki, and I'm a knowledge transfer manager for quantum technologies. I work for KTN, and my role within the quantum landscape is to raise awareness about quantum and its applications. So we do run a lot of events to highlight the importance of quantum for a specific sector or applications. But also connecting people from different backgrounds, whether it's research or industry or public funding, policymakers, private investment, but also, looking at specific topics like creating a sustainable funding stream for quantum businesses in the UK or across Europe, but also discussing very important topics such as innovation, equality, and diversity and inclusion. So KTN as an organization is a UK-wide not-for-profit organization. And our raison d'etre is to connect people from different backgrounds, but also support businesses to access funding opportunities and investment opportunities, but also support innovation in its wider sense across the UK, but also globally. So that's a bit on myself and my role in KTN as an organization.
Yeah, great to hear. And KTN and the work they do, it is something that I've followed for some time with interest. And I think one of the sort of strongest things that we see from KTN, particularly with yourself, is that facilitating collaborations across the landscape. Obviously, there's quite a few pieces of work you've done that I could point to, but in your role, what do you think are the most important things for facilitating that collaboration?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a very important question, John. So as you mentioned, facilitating connections in the quantum landscape means understanding the quantum landscape. And as we know, it's a quite complex landscape because it involves different levels of stakeholders, but also different sectors. So I've gone through that exercise. So my background being in physics and photonics and having done a PhD that is related to quantum devices and applications, I've always seen quantum from a purely technical point of view. And then within my current role as a knowledge transfer manager, I had to take a bit of a wider approach to this sector and try to understand. And we've done the mapping work, for example, and we needed to know who are the current and existing stakeholders, who are the active people within quantum in the UK, but also across Europe or across the world, so we can provide this good service of connecting people and creating these collaboration opportunities is knowing what's the need and how we can match basically the need with the right providers. if that makes sense. So it's all a combination and a gathering of knowledge at different levels, so we can facilitate more collaborations, more introductions, and connect more people and provide visibility of what the businesses are doing, what research is doing, and what are the tools that all of these key stakeholders can benefit from.
And it's, you know, obviously it's a big task that you're undertaking, and there's so many different strands to this, and you know, across this broad landscape. So, how much of the challenge do you think is the appetite for collaboration, and how much do you think is the implementation of the collaboration?
Mhm. I think there is a high appetite for collaboration and an increasing appetite of collaboration, because I think now the awareness to industry is increasing. What can quantum be applied for? And we've seen during the past months or the past years an increasing number of press releases of quantum businesses collaborating with big sectors like the pharma industry, the energy industry, automotive, the defense industry, on specific systems and devices and technologies that are relevant to these sectors. So it is coming more to the wider attention, and therefore I see that the appetite is increasing. And now we read nearly every day dozens and dozens of press releases on quantum being implemented in telecoms. Just a couple of weeks ago, quantum internet by the Hansen Lab, I had the chance to visit about 4 years ago, but also things in the defense and security sector, in automotive, mobile phones, etc. For implementation, I think we still need to provide a strong connection and match for people from different sectors, basically, so we can boost this collaboration and this implementation of quantum techs by the industry.
And it's interesting, actually. You sort of mentioned the commercial side of it, or the larger players in the commercial side, and from my vantage point, I've seen a little bit of a transition from government funding that gets things started, and then industry comes in and has to sort of take the baton on. And where do you see us as being within that cycle, from transferring from the government stimulus to the commercial? And
Yeah. Well, that's something I mentioned about having a sustainable fund for all these new businesses. And the UK accounts for about half of the startups businesses in quantum across Europe. There are a lot of public funding grants that are there to boost collaboration, as you mentioned, to provide that initial support for launching a lot of quantum techs commercially, and helping with the implementation of the technology for the industry. However, we cannot imagine that the public fund or the government will sustain these businesses over a long time. And also because the public funding is a quite competitive funding, and it cannot fund all the businesses. So therefore, I think, within the UK National Quantum Program, there are there are an initial phase of 10 years where there is around £1 billion that have been invested in quantum techs, and there are a lot of industry projects as well to move quantum from that research phase to a more mature phase and more implemented or commercialized phase. However, like I said, this is only to give that initial boost, but it cannot be used as a sustainable way for these businesses to grow, or even to sustain themselves in the market, because there will be a growing competition basically in this emerging area.
Yeah, and I think that that phrase that quantum's largely at a pre-competition stage, it's a fairly regular theme, and it'll be interesting to see once that's over, kind of what happens, because at the moment it's a really nice place to be, and everyone's sort of helping each other. So, and do you see, so in terms of that investment appetite, you know, if we're going to go from the public to private funding, how do you see that appetite scaling, and or that has scaled over recent times, and how that will continue to scale? What are your thoughts on that?
Mm-hmm. So as I mentioned, gathering knowledge was a very important part in my work. So gathering knowledge about the wider landscape, whether it's research and industry, but also about the investment landscape. And there is a study that I have completed with the help of the investment team at KTN, which hopefully will be public in the coming months, which basically shows the investment curve, specifically in the UK. And just in the 4 last years, or couple last years even, the investment in quantum businesses have been multiplied by 4. So this shows, yes, this shows like really an increasing appetite, or hugely increasing appetite in quantum techs. There are a lot of obviously all types of investors, I would say, that are either UK owned, but also foreign investors who are investing in quantum businesses in the UK. But also there are investors that are there to support early stage companies, whether it's university investment organizations or startup businesses, and early stage investors that are investing in deep techs and high techs, and things like telecoms and health techs and cybersecurity, for example, all types of different applications. So you could see where the interest or the appetite is coming from as well. So the expectation is for this curve to continue growing. And I'm curious to actually recheck the figures at the end of this year and see how the investment been like in quantum businesses in the UK.
Yeah, and a year's an awful long time in quantum. So,
Yes.
and obviously having seen the map of the quantum landscape, I'm waiting with bated breath to see your latest report. So that's certainly, I think you're going to have quite a few people waiting for that to come out. And one of the things that I speak to quite a lot of founders about, or innovators, is the challenges of accessing the capital. And whilst I think that we can see that there is more capital coming into the market and more investment. It's not always, you know, the people that are trying to get the funding and have the good ideas. This isn't always that venture capitalist world, or the finance world, or grant application world. That's not always their natural home. So, do you have any advice for people that are maybe looking to start something that of ways that they could streamline their process, or maximize their chance of being able to get the funding to get their ideas off the ground?
Mm-hmm. Well, in my opinion, there could be 2 possible ways. So I guess for fundraising and investment and finance raising, there should be a dedicated person within a company or within a business to look after this task. But I appreciate also that there are a lot of programs and also investors who are willing to provide these initial baby steps, or tips and help for these businesses to raise funding. and to raise investment. So these are the two possible ways I could think of. There are obviously or all type of investors, and it just depends on the stage a company is at. I'm not a finance person, so I could not go into details, but obviously, like, depending on the stage of the company, they might either go for venture capital or for another type of investment or for seed stage or there are different options. There are also business angels associations, for example, that could be also very helpful for startups and early stage businesses. So these are different ways.
Yeah, so kind of do your due diligence and explore the options would be the the sort of summary with that. And obviously, you've got a really good vantage point on all things quantum. That I see sort of so much that sort of comes through you, and sort of keep as a knowledge transfer manager in quantum. How do you sort of keep up with everything, because you've got so many different strands to what you do. How do you sort of keep up with all the latest news and events and everything that's happening so quickly and going more quickly?
Yeah, I mean, it is true that it is sometimes going at a faster pace than we would want, and I think that's a good sign in its own. It just shows that things are speeding up, things are moving quickly because there is an increase in interest and there is an increase in awareness and things like that. Or maybe there were some things that we're preparing for the past few years, and now we can see the fruit or the results that are just all coming out at the same time. I find social media personally quite helpful. So platforms like LinkedIn, for example, and you can follow the main companies or businesses are amazing networks who also help pointing out the important news, so you can see what's happening, the recent collaborations. Obviously, I do also receive magazines from some associations or society I'm part of that keep me up to date also with the latest science findings or whatever that I get in the post. So this is quite nice and helpful. There are a lot of good networks out there, and I mean sometimes it's overwhelming, all the newsletters and things like that. We do also send our newsletter at KTN to highlight some of the important news or events, but there are also some quite good ones. And the interest and the focus is different from a channel to another, I guess. Some of them are more to highlight findings, science findings, others to highlight research findings, other to highlight more collaborations at industrial level. There's just a wide choice of options that you can go for if you want to keep up to date. And obviously on social media and other public platforms, we all are sort of communicators. I mean, yourself or anyone else with us in the room, we all post stuff and we contribute into feeding the news as well for the community. So you see all of these communicators on social media who are not born communicator, who don't officially wear the communicator hat of their companies, but who appreciate and understand that in order to increase awareness and commercialization of quantum technologies, you need to communicate a lot. And if you want to promote your business or your company, especially for all these early stage companies, you need to communicate a lot so you can attract customers, but also attract attention to the technology you're developing.
Yeah, and it's it's one of those things that with the broad view that you have, and you know, obviously both yourself personally and KTN as an organisation, you know, you're absolutely crucial to helping so many businesses and individuals. What kind of things can the rest of us in the quantum community? How can we help you to help us?
Right. That's a very important one. I would say just keep talking to us, basically. And if you had some news, just share it with us. That's the main message, I would say, because this is where the most collaborations happen, is by talking to different people. And we need to keep talking to different people so we can create these matches, basically. So we talk to people and we ask people to talk to us so we can find better about what they do.
And I think with these sorts of things, obviously over the last year and a bit, how people communicate has changed drastically. And during the pandemic, how have you found that that the lines of communication have how are they different? How have you found they've improved, got worse, been more challenging? You know, obviously with someone who's so reliant upon communication, it would be really interesting to hear how that journey's been for you.
Oh yes, okay. I would say it's been a really an ups and downs journey, depending on the sort of periods we're on. But I appreciate that, you know, as of today, a lot of our communication activity has moved online, and so it is for so many businesses and so many stakeholders in quantum. I think in a way, the positive thing is it broadens the reach. You can easily now connect on your computer, attend events, conferences. You don't need to be physically there. Before the pandemic, a lot of our events would take place mostly in London or any bigger um, South England cities, and that was an issue for a lot of other people who are based a bit further in the UK, but also people who are based abroad.
Mm.
So they can't really attend. So they might have been missing something. So having that online option and recordings being put, so people can also watch them at their convenience, because that's a downside then, is way too much sometimes of online events and virtual things, and it's competing with your day-to-day work or your business as usual. And if you have priorities, well, you have to filter a bit, and you can just sort of cherry pick what you can and what you can't attend, or what you want or won't attend. So there has been a bit of online fatigue or Zoom fatigue. I have to be frank, I was one who suffered from that, and I'm sure many people did. Is at the end of the day, we're also exhausted because we do talking all day long. Sometimes it feels just a bit repetitive because you're telling people the same thing. However, there are a lot of new things that you learn. And like I said, having that opportunity to switch on your camera, to talk to someone, it increases your reach. It increases also the number of people you can connect with during a day or during a week. Obviously, there has been an increase in activity on social media, on what's going on and people, what's they're posting. So yeah, there are good sides and bad sides to it, really.
And do you feel, obviously the medium used for the messages is different, but do you feel the actual message itself has had to be changed due to that, or?
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's just there is now a bit or people are being more careful about the scope or the message they're communicating. Because like I said, there's just a wide choice of things that you can have online, and you need to be competitive. So the more your scope and your audience are defined, I guess the most beneficial is. And also there is a lot of thinking, obviously, on whether webinar or not webinar,
Mm.
is because these are also resources that people invest. People invest time, but they invest their own resources, um, their own marketing and communication. And the question is, if you decide to hold an online event or webinar, what are you trying to achieve from it, really? Because then there is, again, a wide choice of how to raise awareness about a topic. You know, it could be through writing an article, it could be through targeted communication, and things like that, or press releases, and then having a webinar. So that makes me also think about like the tools that we're trying to implement to sustain that networking aspect, you know, because that's also problematic, because physically you would just people expect to grab a coffee during their 10 or 15 minutes break. And you know, this is where some unexpected and completely spontaneous conversations can happen, and having that virtual barrier
Mm.
could be sometimes very difficult to deal with. I don't know. I'm sitting on an event and there are 200 more people online. I probably can see their names if I can see it, because that's not always the case. But even if I can see it, it just becomes too overwhelming. I'm not even sure who I can direct myself to and who I can be talking. It just creates that extra barrier for you to talk to an unknown person, I would say.
And I suppose as well within quantum, we work in an industry where so much of it is unknown, and this is another unknown to add into the mix as well. So, but have you found that the obviously the quality of engagement is different, but do you find that the quantity of engagement has made your role easier or harder? You know, more distractions or more focused, or how have you found that? Because it's a difficult blend to get just right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a sort of balance to find, right, on what you keep and what you filter, basically, and who are the connections that are relevant to your network. um, I guess having a specific request, um, with a specific purpose really helps direct the message you're trying to connect with through that virtual interface, whatever the type of virtual interface you're using, whether it's during the networking part of a webinar or on social media. The first step is, what's your request, what are you trying to achieve, really helps to connect with that person and achieve that first or initial step. So I would say, um, through the past year, it considerably increased our time online, but also our working time, because then you see all these amazing opportunities that you can't miss out.
Yeah.
And also because, like I said, our raison d'être is to connect people. So the more connections and the wider our network is, the more useful we are to our connections,
Mm.
because then we can provide them with more information, with more contacts. So this is like part of our work, but then it increased our activity, but then we're sort of now going back to a balance where we deciding, what to keep and what to pass on, basically.
And I think that that's quite sort of quite a nice point, actually, because I think that the kind of etiquette around some of, what some of these events where you're in a virtual world or a little bubble and you think someone's talking, can I go over or do I not? Whereas if you're there in person, you know things like eye contact and people's body shape come into play. So moving forward, if things sort of, or as things open back up, how do you see that developing as as we sort of get back to having the opportunity to meet face to face again and things like that? But we've also had the opportunity to explore these virtual meetings. What's KTN and yourselves' view on what's next?
Well, at KTN, this is still under discussion how the new format will look like. But I think, something around being more inclusive to more people to attend our events is something very important, whether you could allow, for example, more recordings to happen during physical events. So you can still reach out to a broader audience. But we all do appreciate that there is something that happens during physical events that cannot be exactly replicated on virtual events. And also because we human beings are social human beings. For some of us, we're not that social human beings, but I think the pandemic has proven that we cannot live, through our computers. And we cannot do that for the rest of our lives. That's out of question. So I think there's something that is irreplaceable about the warmth of social interactions and that build this trust between people, because the virtual thing is always a bit, sometimes it could be malicious thing, or you can't really identify people or check their identity. So having a person face to face also helps building trust relationships.
And on that theme of communicating with others and opening conversations out, obviously we've got some people on with us who I know some of them will have some interesting questions. So if we can open it out, is there anyone with any questions that's with us today? Rupesh has come in and got his hand up. So Rupesh, please.
That's good.
Hi, Najwa. It's a great talk. Do you recall we first met at the National Quantum Technology Showcase that was held at the QE2 Centre in London?
Yes.
Seems like 100 years ago. And my question is this: how have you seen the quantum landscape change from those early days?
I think I don't know. I came in quite a bit with the naive perception of what quantum was, and I was in the very start when we met at the showcase. It was, I think, my second month at KTN. So I was a bit lost in this world. It just looks too overwhelming and too big. And it's funny now, I feel like all people I see or meet in events nowadays are all familiar, and I just keep bumping into the same people over and over again. As far as the quantum landscape is concerned, I see a lot of opportunities opening up for collaboration, and with the online activity, it may be capturing the attention for a broader audience that it would through a very niche event like the Quantum Showcase, because the one that happened in QE2 2 years ago, I can tell that it was a quite niche event with people mainly from the quantum community, perhaps with some representatives of stakeholders and sectors. And now with the online activity, I feel like people have more or are more brave to get in touch with quantum people and ask questions.
Yeah, I think that that's certainly a thing that I've seen as well. Is, you know, people are happy to help, or a lot of people are happy to
Yes.
help others on the journey. So, and is there anyone else that would like to take this opportunity with Najwa to ask some questions?
Yes, John.
Hi,
This is
Bhuvi, come in.
Yeah, I can go ahead. So I just let me put my video too. So I think, yeah, one thing is I noticed was, let me, Najwa mentioned that it's a barrier when we communicate with the people in the remote way. I think one other thing I want to just tell is I am participating in the hackathon, the Europe hackathon with the almost three other people. They're doing a PhD scholars, like one from CERN and a couple of other from Greece and Israel. And so it was very amazing to see, because I'm actually a experienced person, but they're all like a research scholars, under 30-year-old or 25-year-old people. So we are able to communicate well, able to propose and continue with the project. And it was very amazing. See, at the same time, I understand the barrier. If you're not in person, still it may not be, the communication may not be well enough to achieve our target. But in the quantum landscape, I think this ecosystem is growing a faster way. So I think what are all our contribution to make it more effective and proceed further to the next level. So that's my question. I think whether we can improve better communication. Is there any other ways other than these virtual events? In person may not be possible for another at least 6 months. I feel, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a very important one. I think we will still need to rely on these virtual platforms. But I appreciate there are a lot of thinking around, I mentioned networking, how to make networking more engaging. Because through a Zoom, like we're sitting here in a quite intimate room, there are a few people and we all feel confident sharing thoughts, asking questions. If you double this room, it will be more difficult for other people to come forward and to ask questions or even feel confident to talk. If you talk in a room that is 100 people, I'm pretty sure that you won't be able to ask your questions in a verbal way. You may ask it on a chat, and this decreases already the connection that we're creating. It's been proven that your brain, I've read that through a lot of articles, is making more efforts trying to understand the physical expressions through the computer than it would be if we were sitting on the same table and talking. So it's already a lot of energy that we invest when we're speaking through our computer, and at the end of the day you feel like really tired, and maybe after a few weeks you will disengage from a lot of these virtual and networking events. But like I said, there is more thinking about how to make better platforms, for example, for discussion. I would personally say that the most conclusive and productive conversation come from smaller rooms. So if you have a big event and then you want to allow time for questions or comments or networking, then you better break it into smaller rooms so people can feel confident asking questions, sharing thoughts. If you have that wider group, then there's nothing that will come out of it. And I have been personally organizing events where I had maybe just 10 people join in, and I probably had way more actions, to follow up on than being on events where 200 people sat on the call, and I had no clue at the end of the event who joined, who didn't join, what they did, and how they are even relevant to me, and how useful they are for my network.
Exactly. I mean, I totally agree with you, because John and Rupesh, this is a second meeting for me, even though I was in the quantum reading and education for a couple of months. This is a second meeting. So I was comfortable talking to, at least listening and asking questions. So only Rupesh and John, I know in this meeting. So definitely I agree with you. It may, if it is a larger group, like 200 people or more, that may not be, but I think a takeaway is probably even that is driving us for a few steps further. It will be helpful, because definitely I agree with you. Yeah. Thank you.
No worries.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that we've tried to do with these discussions is keep it for the quantum community, or focus it on the quantum community, so people can that have a message or wish to listen to a message, it can be unadulterated. It doesn't have to be commercialized or dumbed down or anything like that. It can actually be people in quantum talking to people in quantum. So hopefully that also lends itself to people putting their hand up and asking questions. So is there anyone else, whilst you've got such a great opportunity, that had anything they'd like to bring up?
Come on, we don't bite.
Yeah. Hey Louis, come in.
Well, I'm not a quantum guy, so I try to find out, because you invite me, you invite me to attend the meetings.
But Louis, sorry, Louis, you're in optics.
I'm totally lost.
KTN doesn't
I'm
discriminate
totally
on
lost.
different technologies.
Yeah, it's a little bit far away from photon. It's an optics, but I try to sort it out. If I can apply that one for what I'm trying to do, but again, I don't know. Maybe I can have a further discussion with Najwa, and then of the day in Edinburgh, we'll find out, if is any other way to channel what I was doing in different way. I can get this funding and this grant from the Innovate UK, so. Because at the moment, I don't know if quantum will be ideal for me for database, for data analysis of the cells, or whatever I have to do. But again, the project is changing constantly, and now it's not going to be. It's going to be another application. But again, I don't know. Maybe further computing database maybe can be useful for that, and the digitalization of the technology, but not in the sensor part of the technology. Yeah, trying to see. I don't know. I haven't worked in quantum for. I don't know. I did something in the past with the optical interconnects in the past, but it's different. Optical interconnects, but it's different from quantum. I know it's all related, because it's all about data, how you emit data through high bandwidth communication. How to receive that data, how you trade that data. I know I know understand, especially in biomedical, we go into nano-picosecond. You have to deal with a time frame where it's very hard to get the visualization of the data in place. And you see many of the channels, and you need to do data algorithms to that to understand what you're getting. So it's getting very complicated, very complex. The biomedical market is getting very, very challenging all the time. Everyone wants to have the information in real time, what you have in the time, and it's anti-consuming, you know what I mean? And at the moment, I don't see the Innovate UK give too much solutions to this problem at the end of the day. I don't know. Euro the same. They don't give solutions to this problem either at all. Everyone is asking to go to the doctor to have faster diagnosis, but there are no grants, they're not helping with that. So I don't know. Maybe it's a further conversation we have to have, and you know.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I'm happy to explore that further with you on a separate call, but I appreciate all the topics that you mentioned are of relevance. So everything that is linked to biomedical imaging, image processing, you mentioned data analytics, machine learning, and things like that. So all of this is relevant. Photonics is of high relevance. It has a very respected place in the UK quantum landscape. Obviously, because a lot of quantum is quantum optics in the UK. There are a lot of quantum optics based technologies like telecoms and things like that. But also imaging, for example. Yeah, I mean, happy to explore that a bit further. But we tried to summarize some of these capabilities and applications in the landscape map, just to give people some initial ideas, and then we can go a bit on a more detail on a specific topic.
Because I think in my application can fit better in the quantum technology, so probably we can tweak the technology for the quantum technology. I think when we discuss with John, we can tweak a little bit, okay, and then we can get attraction from the quantum perspective, okay? But I think I need to have a further conversation with you and I see how we go now, okay, from here. I tell you the truth, I don't really want to get into the entrepreneurship at the end of the day, like I was before, because I'm fed up of University of Edinburgh. But that has been very nasty in the way. But I really want to put in the market a very intelligent system, okay? Intelligent system. And whatever you go in the UK or in America, wherever you go, everyone wants one thing: 4D imaging. 4D imaging, you know, people start to talk about 4D imaging. You can see publications, papers, and that. But when you put application through for 4D imaging and the Innovate UK, UKRI, and all that, you got the impression and the feeling nobody understands what you're talking about. Nobody. And when you're talking about, it's because the professor, blah, 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 or the company, blah, 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 all they want is to scan everything very rapidly with thousands of data and get it like that in a nanosecond like that. In order to do that, you need a lot of money and you need to invest. When you put in a piece of paper and they don't give you a chance for interview in Innovate UK, then you don't know what they're talking about. However, they tell you, oh, very good idea. But no, it's good idea. The market needs it. The market telling me everyone's needed, but it's a very good idea. And they don't understand, they don't quite understand what you're talking about. And I found one professor in Germany, one old in Germany, understood what is the need of 4D imaging. Because they say, in Germany, I don't know what happens here in the UK, in Germany, the doctors getting very complicated with instrumentation. They can't control everything at the moment. There's so many equipment. So they want to have everything in the monitor, everything centralized in the monitor. So they want to operate the surgery, the patient, and they want to have everything controlled like that. And I remember that German professor give a presentation, what we have to do for this. And everyone understood. Nobody understood and what it's all about. And that one is putting all instrumentation together, fitting everything together where the doctor can visualize your organ and all the time. Doesn't need to do anything. So you see, or a few people in the world start to get about that. Got about the computing side. What is the challenge for computing? What is the challenge or displaying everything and accordingly? So it's very difficult, very challenging in this to people exactly. They want. I mean, people know what they want, but they don't understand the way to do it. That is the complexity. You know what I mean? People want to have it.
No, I
know what I'm going.
And I think this doesn't apply only to imaging. It applies a lot to a lot of quantum technologies out there. How do we move them from a concept or research idea to a fully integrated system that, you know, you can touch and press buttons and make it do an enhanced function of imaging or measurement or whatever. I appreciate that a lot of the public funding grants are also very competitive. So not all of them get funded, and this creates also a lot of frustration. But there are a lot of things that are in consideration, like what stage are you within the technology, and also the type of goals. I know that there has been an effort also that has been put recently into considering things like feasibility studies or things like that.
Yeah.
If you're part of a bigger consortium, I don't know, let's say I want to put quantum imaging with, let's say, Leica, and I have Leica with me who's supporting me, and we are going to build a quantum microscope something. And we're going to put, it just depends also on the type of people that are within a consortium who are putting together a proposal and what they are trying to achieve. So it is a bit more complicated, but hopefully we can reach a bit better understand, because I appreciate your point on what you mentioned, like not being able to understand what we're trying to achieve. And this is a case for a lot of quantum research. And having a better understanding of what's the use, what we're trying to use it for, and how we're going to put it in place is something that is very important.
Yeah. Well, just for finishing, what you find is in all the biomedical labs in the country and the world, and in the academia, you find 100 instruments. You know that you go into the biomedical lab, 100 instruments funded by the government, and I tell you the truth, all of them do the same thing. They're not different. There's no. Believe me, I've been working. Everyone using the same incubator, the same microscopy system, the same technology. Nobody bothers to develop anything new, because what they tell you is, oh, we know the company is there, so we buy from the on sale, so we don't bother about. So we end up finally buying from family and friends, mean buying from the people we know for the big corporation. So when we come out with a solution from the big corporation, first, the government doesn't understand what you're talking about, so it's very difficult to go across that, pass the message across. Secondly, you are stopped by the big corporation. And we know most of the panel members and the reviewers are linked to corporations, so they're part of the Venn diagram. Because I am in the UK, and I'm in the UK, a UK fellowship journal reviewer, okay? Most of them people from Thermo Fisher, from Leica, from Nikon, from blah blah, from that, and that one is stopped because we are so intelligent, we protect our own businesses, so we don't. So if the company is selling a standalone product, why have to look up for a new technology? It's no point. But that means you can see, or every year you can see different versions of the same product all the time. And seriously, it's exactly the same. It's the same microscope, it's the same CCD camera, it's exactly the same thing. I tell you what, I don't know what they offer you, but it's because they got the market and the customer, not the company, and they got the market, so they buy from there. So that is, we need to break that loop somehow. This loop has to be broken with innovation. So when you come with innovation to penetrate that, it's very difficult. You are stopped, you are blocked. Well, I see my experience, so I don't know your point of view.
Yeah, I mean, having a better linking between engineering and research, basically. So the engineering is what translates this concept, this science concept to an actual physical device or technology. But I do appreciate what you says, that a lot of marketing is out there and not very much new or disruptive technology is being created, because some of the devices, let's say microscopes, they go obsolete after a certain time. A lot of their parts are not produced. They just go on to a higher version. But sometimes I have worked on microscopes that are 20 or 30 years old that worked better than the newer versions, or could see better things or more interesting things on things that were like 20 or 30 years old that were perfectly functionable. So you would question like what we're trying to achieve exactly, but that's a very valid point indeed.
Yeah, and you see another point is feeling is the big corporations get more funding and more grants for R&D like a startup companies, okay, like a small company, okay. And I can see that also. I make some comparison with big universities. You know, I know, for example, if someone here in the UK from Glasgow University apply for a UKRI fellowship, okay, funded by the government, another company, another idea come from a professor in Cambridge, Oxford, directly, you know, circumstantially, and the circumstance, you're going to give it to Cambridge, Oxford, right into Glasgow or Edinburgh. Why? Because our mental status, oh, that's very cool, technology you're proposing is very cool, I was supposed to give it to them. So then I fall in the temptation also in that thing. So I'm very careful when I read proposals, you know what I mean? But having, and also I have to say, having a big group of people supporting my technology still is 100% or 90% for me to fail, because I'm nobody in the industry. And nobody in the industry. Or someone go a worse idea than me, but if have a very good backup from the industry, he can get a grant. So yeah, you see, it's something, don't know, it's something need to change. And I tell you what, when I was talking to people in industry to analyze, okay, you give me a 4D, I can get the analysis of 4D imaging to scan the place and all that thing. I said, well, you give, I told the government, you give me the money, I can do it, because I know how to do it. So I don't need to put one microscope. I can put many, many small sensors reading that. Right? People see, people understand, but nobody give you the money. Not let the government give you money. So you go to see the biomedical companies, like the Catapult, you know the door for Catapult, hello, Catapult, gene and therapy, and you know that, and they say, I got this technology, and the Catapult say, oh, it's very cool. It's really, really cool. But, oh, we don't give you money. You get the money from the government, and then we talk about it.
Well, it sounds as though where we were saying about, you know, communication and meeting more face to face. It sounds as though we've arranged a meeting here for.
Yeah.
Maybe outside. Is it outside of coffee bars at the moment in Scotland still, or?
No.
But you know, this is what entangled discussions are about, and it sounds as though there's one entanglement we've got there. And you know, looking at the how things develop in future, Nigel, I'd be keen to hear your view on you know what your hopes are for the future. You know, there's so much happening at the moment. If you can kind of encapsulate that, I'll be really interested to hear.
Yeah, so there is a lot obviously going on currently in the landscape. I think now more than ever, there is a big focus on what's next for businesses, and also a big focus on collaboration, whether it's industry. I mean, Luis mentioned a very valid point is how to translate a science or research concept to a business, and how to explain how why to look for another technology where we're comfortable with what we have, an existing technology that is well mature. Why take financial risk and time risk to invest in quantum technology? And I think, in my opinion, there should be more focus on communicating on what's the added value of quantum, because it's not clear in everyone's mind. I would also appreciate, you know, in future communications, if we could do a flash back into the history of quantum, just to understand how this science has emerged and what sort of challenges are we trying to address. I would really appreciate that if someone can have or make the effort of making this history line of computing, for example, and how did we come to quantum computing and why we need quantum computing. Because the story always starts with quantum computing applies to this and this and that, and this is all the amazing things we can do with it. But there is a bit of forgotten part of explaining how do we get to that in the first place. I mean, obviously there are a lot of the physics and, you know, the quantum physics that we can read about and we can talk about. But how did we move from this completely theoretical steps to talking about qubits being entangled and superimposed, and how did we build that chandelier-like computer, and just putting together the pieces of the puzzle, because there is a missing piece about the history of quantum, because now we're in 2021. We know the current state. Do we have a clear idea about what happened in the past 40 years? Because quantum hasn't started with the UK National Quantum Program. Quantum hasn't started with, you know, in the past 10 or 20 years. Quantum has a longer history. So it would be more interesting to go through these different phases so we can explain what we're trying to achieve by quantum.
So kind of looking back to the future, if it almost.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, Najwa, thank you so much for today. I think you've given a really good insight into both your work and the wider quantum landscape. I also suspect that you've got some people that will be reaching out to you privately as well to take things further. And yeah, as I say, you know, thanks so much for this. Obviously, we're back on at the same time next week. And on the 25th, Najwa will be back with our other guests of this month for a panel discussion where we can entangle everyone together and take things further again. So thank you, everyone.